Angela would have to take me with her, and she would cut out of school or be smoking in the schoolyard, and then I would go home. Of course, I was 6 years younger than her, and I would tell my mother, Angela's smoking.
And listen, not everybody's going to agree with my decision. I can give a fuck less. You're in that position, it's you who got to face it, then you do what you need to do.
Little Changolini, he gets to the jail and
steal cars from Maryland and take them to Delaware to a chop shop.
The inside prison in Thailand, as well as what Victor Malarek, the reporter, did to get me out of there.
And I sat down and thought about it for the longest time. Okay, but once I made up my mind, it was about survival. I need to take care of my kids and take care of my family. And when a guy's not being loyal to you, how could you be loyal to him?
Welcome to Chattin with Staxx. Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Jack O'Halloran. What's up, Jack?
I ain't got nothing going with the rent there, son. How you doing?
I'm doing great. A lot of projects in the works, and things are great.
Yeah, we're cooking along here, boy. Gorgeous outside.
Yeah, it's beautiful out here today, too. I'm going to go enjoy the day later. And so today, I want to talk to you about, because I've, I speak to a lot of people, and there's a lot of naysayers out there. Like, he's not Albert Annastasia's son. A lot of people, I don't know, when you tell your story or other people tell their story, it seems like they think they know what the truth is. And I'm here to try to get
documents. I've got documentation that proves who I am. So I don't worry about any of that stuff.
What I want to talk about is, how did you even come to fruition that Albert Anastasia was linked to you? How did this come about? And how did you meet him the day that you met him? Can you walk me through it?
Yeah, he came to see me play a football game. Him and a bunch of people, and the coaches thought they were scouts because they were dressed, to the nines, like suits, ties, and shirts and
fedoras.
Yeah. There were three of them there, and the guy said, "Oh my God, you're being watched by college scouts." I said, "Wow, it's awful early I was only a freshman in high school." So and he came to see me that right after that, and we sat down, and I was a little bit, I was told a different story and by my mother, and she just she opened up and we straightened it up. So I was supposed to go to New York to see him the following week, and that's the week they assassinated him. But he left with his lawyer a whole 256-page document, which depicted a whole bunch of things that what happened from the time he came into the country till the time that, and he knew he was going to he knew that it was coming, because he wouldn't give in to what they wanted. And they wanted him to use the porch to drink drugs. And he said, not on my watch. We didn't sign up for this. And he's the one that said, like Brando said in The Godfather, if we touch it, our children will touch it, and it'll be the downfall of the families. And he was right. And, and the fact is that after the assassination happened, they were sorry. They knew they made a bad mistake, because Albert was the glue that held everything together. Murder Incorporated worked very well until they had a rat, and then it started the rat syndrome.
Yeah.
Abe Rellis was, he got a beating in the garage. They should have killed him instead of just giving him a beating.
Oh, they let him go after they beat him up?
Yeah, they beat him. Buckholder Lefke, he gave this guy a beating in the garage because he did something really bad. And they should have killed him, because after he got the beating like that, he went right to the feds and he started ratting, and they put him in a motel in Staten Island. He sat there for 2 years ratting on people. Put 11 guys on death row.
Was he in the same hotel where he was killed for 2 years?
He was in the same place being protected 24/7 by police, and yet he went out the window. And they said he tied sheets and was trying to climb out, but his body was 20 feet away from the wall where he hit. So someone chucked him out the window.
So
And here he is being protected 24/7. But he went out the window the night before he was supposed to testify against Albert.
Wow.
And
Did you hear about Albert before he came to the football game? Did you hear about him?
He was in the news. I mean, everybody knew who Albert Annastasia was. My God, he was in the newspapers all the time, you know. And I had a minder around me that he put around me. And the guy was an Irish guy by the name of Rip Collins, whose brother was a serious general in the Irish Revolution, Tommy Collins. And he was an engineer for General Electric, and he ran the waterfront in Philadelphia. So he was very close to my father, and a very bright guy. And my father put him next to me. He was like a minder when I grew up in my life. You know, he kept telling me, you know, you're a special kid. You need to do this. You need to learn this. You need to learn that. But he wouldn't tell me what it was. What do you mean special? What are you talking? He said, you'll find out as you grow older. He said, but you know, there's things that you're going to, you know, be faced with. And he was preparing me for stuff. And when Albert died, you know, I got a call to go and meet some people, Meyer Lansky, and then I went up and met Costello. And I used to go up and meet Costello a couple of times a week, and I meet Meyer in different places. I mean, I would see him at the Trenton train station. I had to be on platform so-and-so, and he would walk. I never wanted people taking pictures of us together. They were trying to protect me all the time. And I get a call to go to Florida. He owned the Fountain Blue. Hold on one second.
It's okay. I'm in the studio, so I'll take you out, and then just give me the thumbs up when you're good. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so he'll be back and he'll explain more of the story once he takes his phone call. I appreciate everyone that takes the time to watch this show. We got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. What's up, Jack? So,
okay.
Did you
So I got close to Meyer Lansky, and I got very close to Frank Costello, and I got close to Tommy Lucchese and a few other people, and you know, and my life changed a lot. And there was a lot of things that was explained to me, and a lot of things that went on, and my life just took a different turn altogether.
Yeah. So how does the Anastasia family feel about you?
I have no problem with any of them at all. I mean, we see each other once in a while. I don't have an everyday relationship, or every holiday relationship or anything like that. But we respect each other, and we see each other if I'm in New York, I'll go see somebody, or Anthony's children were close to me for a while. My uncle Anthony, Tony Annastasia, who ran the waterfront for a long time.
Tony, right?
Tough Tony Anastasia, but he was a college graduate. He was a brain spark, right? He was a very clever guy, and because of the strength of Albert, the waterfront was his. He could do what he wanted down there. And he was very, very fair, and he was good. And now Tony Scotto took over after that. He was married to his daughter, so he took over the waterfront afterwards. After Tony was, and Tony, his power dissipated after Albert was killed. He didn't have the same strength behind him.
So the
union changed. Everything changed.
Yeah, the unions, and so I seen people were talking. Oh, Albert got assassinated, and they never retaliated because of it.
That's not true.
This is Tony right here.
Yeah, Tony Anastasia. His name is Anastasio. The family name is as Anastasio. Albert changed it to Anastasia because he didn't want the family to be labored with what he was doing.
Oh, so he kind of disconnected himself from his legitimate family.
He changed the name to put an A on the end of it instead of an O.
Wow. What year did he do that? Do you know?
He did it early on, and when he went in the Army and he came out of the Army, then gave him citizenship and all. They never deport. Here's the strength that they had. You know, from the time he got involved in the altercation on the waterfront, and he killed the guy, and
with an ice pick.
He was on death row. He was supposed to die in the chair, and he helped an old man in jail. And the old guy reached out to Charlie Luciano and said, "This guy you need to get him out of jail. He's going to be good for you." And they did. They got him a new trial. And all the witnesses disappeared. So he walked free, but they never deported him. And he only got locked up a couple times after that. And, you know, nothing that held any credence or anything. One was tax evasion or something, and they cleaned that up real quick. And he was a clever business guy. He owned factories in different places. Pennsylvania. He went to the army in Pennsylvania. He was a sergeant who was teaching soldiers how to be longshoremen, but he never spent the night in the barracks. He was always down in Philadelphia and stuff. That's where he met my mother, and I was a love affair, a World War II love affair, you know. And it was in 1942, and I was born in 1943, you know. But he went back to his family in Fort Lee, and he'd already sold his house, and his wife was already being transported to Canada, where she came from, because he knew that he knew there was a problem. He knew it was going to wind up. In fact, the night before, in the same hotel that he got shot in, he was in a meeting with Santo Trafcanti and Carlo Marcellus, and they were begging him, "Please, Albert, it's only business. You know, let's just do the business here." And he said, "No, it's not. That's not good business." And Costello told him the same thing. And they tried to kill Frank Costello in the chin. When he pulled the trigger, he moved his hand and he only grazed his head.
Didn't he say something? Hey, he said something to him. Hey, and that gave him the time to like move, right?
Yeah, he just changed. He just moved it, but he moved his hand as well. Because if you want to kill somebody, and you know, he had killed a few people, so he
went right through his fedora, right?
Yeah, just skinned his head. But and Frank said, "You know what? This is not worth it," and he stepped down. But you know, he told them he had the best political book of any of them in the country, and he told them, he said, "You know, they'll tolerate a lot of things that we do, but they're not going to tolerate this drug business." And they weren't going to tolerate the drug business because the government was in the drug business themselves. You know, it was a bunch of, you know, it's when the stuff really started getting really scoopy, you know. And people got really stupid about doing things. And because there were heroin opium dens all over America, way back in 1910, for God's sake. There in New York then that's where Charlie Luciano got in trouble. Because he was working for Arnold Rothstein, or Arnold Rothstein protected all the brothels and all the opium dens and all the street stuff. So Charlie got involved with all that, and that's how they got him on this prostitution thing, which was bull. They protected all the brothels. It wasn't that they started them or they were really running them or anything. They just protected them.
But they would bring the drugs in too, right? They would bring the drugs into the brothel.
Well, that was up to the brothel people. That's their problem, you know. And the opium dens were the same way. There were opium dens everywhere, and they just protected the opium dens. And just a lot of things were hand in hand, and nobody ever bothered anybody because it wasn't out of line. And you have to understand something, that you know, do you know what the first prohibition in our country was?
No.
1914, they signed a thing called the Harrison Act. The Harrison Act gave Big Pharma all the permission to write scripts for drugs and everything. And before the Harrison Act, you could walk into a drugstore and buy marijuana right across the counter. And cocaine was already in Coca-Cola. You understand?
Yeah.
The Harrison Act gave Big Pharma all its muscle. And a lot of women, and nobody ever talks about this, and it's really sad, because a lot of women in you're talking about 1920 and before 1920 and up there, women never worked. They stayed at home. They had 6 kids, 8 kids, 10 kids. They had a lot of children. You understand? And they were being worn down and worn out. So the Harrison Act gave doctors the right to write prescriptions so that they would give them speed to wake up in the morning and Valium to go to sleep at night. But what nobody ever thought about was those drugs are in this woman's body. They're going into this child that she's having. You understand?
Yeah.
So kids were being born with addictions, and no one ever said boo about it until 1970, around 1970, 71. And out of a New York state, the New York hospital, they did a documentary. These little kids were being born, and they were screaming and crying, and nobody could figure out what the hell was wrong with them, except one doctor said, these kids are going through withdrawal. Their mothers are addicted people, and the child, that blood's going into a baby. So when the baby's born, it's going through withdrawal because the mother's not supplying that drug to them anymore.
Yeah.
So their bellies are cramping and they're screaming and crying. They only showed that documentary once. They did a whole documentary on it about the littlest junkie. And they only showed it once because of the power of Big Pharma.
Wow, the littlest junkie it was called.
Yeah.
Wow,
Littlest
I gotta
junkie.
write that down.
Babies were born with addictions. You understand? And it's like a heroin addict today. If you take heroin, your body doesn't reproduce certain drugs, and it doesn't reproduce heroin. So when you stick heroin in your blood, and then you don't put it back, your body can't redo it. So you go through belly cramps and sweats and.
I was addicted to heroin for a long time, Jack.
Well, then you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And when you
what
come
you're
off of it,
about.
the only way to really come off of heroin is to go through the horror of the cramping and stuff, and go through it and let it flush out of your body. People started taking that other drug that was supposed to be a replacement for heroin.
Yeah, methadone or Suboxone.
Methadone was worse than heroin because it caused deterioration of your spinal canal, and it was a worse addiction. So you couldn't go from one to the other. The only way to really kick heroin, if you were involved in heroin, then you should know this. The only way you kick it is you cold turkey.
Yeah.
You just cold turkey and just say no. It's like an alcoholic. An alcoholic, the only way he beats alcohol is he just one day decides he's not going to drink anymore.
I was addicted to alcohol too.
It
was bad.
I haven't had a drink in 47 years.
It's been almost 5 years for me. September 14th will be 5 years.
It's there's certain addictions they're just plain addictions, but there's things that can be done about it. Whether or not the person is strong enough, principle-wise, to do something about it is a different story. It's just about learning how to say no. I'm not going to live my life that way today.
My aspect of it, I worked on my problems, my internal problems, because the alcohol and drugs will always be there. If I can be in a situation and people are like offering me drugs or alcohol and I can turn it down and not have to run to that, or if something happens in my life and I don't have to run to that, that's a success to me.
Well, it's just I never, when I quit drinking, and I told everybody, it's not even a subject to be brought up. So, and I was a pretty handy kid when I was a kid. I remember I was at a function one time with a few of my friends, and somebody kept coming up to me and said, "Hey, Jack, you got to try this wine. You should have some." I said, "Nah, no thanks. I don't drink." And the guy kept pushing the glass in front of me, and the guy who was with me said, "You put that glass in front of him one more time, we're going to break your arm because you don't want to see this guy take that drink. If he takes that drink, you're all in trouble."
Yeah, that's how I am. There's not enough alcohol in the world for me to drink.
It's just there's some people have addictions and some people don't, and just one of those things. But there's something you can do about it. That's the kicker of it. So if you choose to live your life a certain way, that's up to you. It's how you live your life. I choose to live my life a certain way, and it doesn't include alcohol. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So over the years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of different situations, and including through history, everything happening. What do you have any stories that really stand out in your mind throughout the years? Like, what are some of the big stories that stand out?
Well, I guess the Hoffa disappearance. You know, everybody they're still making up stories about where Jimmy Hoffa's at.
I think a month ago they were saying he's in New Jersey.
Yeah, well, they did that thing called The Irishman for Netflix, and Fallon. I knew Fallon. He was from Philadelphia.
Have you ever met Ed Sheeran or Russell Buffalino?
Oh yeah, Buffalino was a good guy. Russell Buffalino was a terrific. Russell was a very politically connected Don in Western Pennsylvania, and he stayed in the Trenton area, in the Scranton area, and he wasn't in a big city, and he came from up around New York, and he came down to Pennsylvania. Russell was a very clever businessman, and he was a clever guy. I liked Russell a lot.
Yeah,
and
shout out to his granddaughter, Christina Buffalino, and my friend Loomis. Shout out to Loomis Santoro, Mafia Truth. His great granddaughter is on YouTube telling stories about Russell.
Russell was a very clever businessman. He was a smart guy. I liked Russell a lot. And his brother Billy Buffalino was a lawyer, and Sheeran drove for both of them. He drove the lawyer around, and he drove Russell around. He was just like a chauffeur. And he wrote a book called I Paint Houses, or paint something. And where did he whack a few people? Yeah, he did whack a few people in his life. But was he the force that they tried to make him out to be? No, he wasn't. That's why it never really blew out that he was that big of a force. He never killed Billy Gallo, and he never killed Joe Gallo, and he never killed Hoffa. He was supposed to have shot Hoffa, and they were supposed to have done this and that. It's all bull.
What do you believe happened to Hoffa?
Oh, I know exactly what happened to Jimmy, and it's very sad because Jimmy was a man's man. Jimmy would never ask you to do what he wouldn't do himself. Okay, and that's what I liked about him. And when they set him up with this $8,000 that he supposedly took from the pension fund to have his house fixed, okay? Yeah. If Jimmy Hoffa wanted work done in his house, people would have lined up to do it for nothing.
Probably.
They loved him. Well, I'm telling you right now, people loved him. The guys loved him, right? They were lined up to fix his house for nothing. And there was no pension fund before Hoffa. Hoffa put the pension fund there. You got to realize what Hoffa did for people. Truck drivers, before Jimmy Hoffa, truck drivers were working 18, 20 hours a day. They loaded the truck, they drove it, and they unloaded it. And they got paid shitty wages, okay? Yeah. Hoffa made them a class act where they didn't load and unload anymore. All they did was drive the truck. There's guys who quit their law purpose just to be outside driving across country, and in fresh air and stuff. Because Hoffa made it a respectable job. So when they put this charge on him, he laughed about it. He thought, this is bull. He said, and we talked to him from Boston right before he went to Lewisburg. Every trucker stopped working in America that day, and they lined up all the way to Lewisburg. And as he went by, they kept tooting their horns. Every trucker. I don't know if you ever saw the film of that, but that's right to Lewisburg.
I saw clips of it.
So now he's in jail. He thought he was only going to be there for a couple months. He backed the wrong president. The Kennedys hated him. And he backed the wrong president. So he stayed there for a few years. And then the deal that he made to come out was horrendous. He should have never, ever signed that deal. But he signed it because he wanted out of jail. And
I got a picture of him going into Lewisburg.
Huh? He walked right into.
I got a picture of him into Lewisburg.
He walked into Fitzsimmons' office and said, "Get out of my chair." And Fitzsimmons said, "Jimmy, you can't be here. You're breaking. You signed an agreement. You're not allowed to be anywhere near here until this thing is sorted out or settled or whatever. And Hoffa said, get out of my office. This is my office, my union, and I'm taking it back right now. Then he got on a phone call with New York. And they told him, Jimmy, you're on the phone. Calm down. You can't be in that office. Let's work it out. We'll fix it. We'll get it fixed, and we'll take care of it. And they went back and forth, and he finally, and he said to them, well, when you wanted to buy Caesar's Palace and you needed money I gave you loans from the fund and all that, but they paid every one of those loans back.
Yeah.
They paid everyone when he was there, and he lent them money for $20 million for Caesar's Palace. They paid every dime back. You understand? Fitzsimmons was giving money out like it was free because they scared him. They blew up his kid's car, and they scared the death out of him. So he was giving lending money to this and lending money to that. Nothing like what Hoffa did.
So they didn't want Hoffa to get back into office.
Certain people didn't want Hoffa back in office, especially the Kennedys. So he got into an argument with the guy on the phone in New York, and Jimmy got to a point where he finally turned around and said, I'll go to the press. And the guy in New York hung the phone up. And that was
it. That was his death warrant saying that, right?
He signed his own death warrant. He just,
Now, so what do you think?
He's not buried anywhere. I know exactly where he's at.
With all the speculation, what's your conclusion to what happened that day?
Oh, I know exactly where Jimmy's at. I know exactly what happened. But I'll tell you when I see him.
All right. Tell me when you see me, man. I need to know.
That's something that, and there's been more stories about where Jimmy's under a highway. He's over here. He's buried here. One guy from Chicago, he really made me laugh. He was a wise guy from Chicago whose father had a gentleman's farm right outside of Chicago. And the guy used to go out and till his ground every year for him and set his father's thing off and everything. Well, he's in jail. And he says to the FBI, Jimmy Hoffa is buried in my father's backyard. And they went and they dug up the whole farm. They
tilled it for him?
Oh, yeah. They dug up the whole farm. They didn't find nothing because there's nothing there to find. You understand? But that's the kind of stories that used to make me laugh when I hear stories like that. It's really, it just
goes to he's under home plate, right? Home plate.
Yeah. Well, but he's not buried anywhere, and they're never going to find him. I'll tell you that right now.
And then there's another gentleman that I interviewed. He said that he's inside one of the pillars
that's not true either.
In Detroit.
It's holding up the highway. No, that's not true either. No. Nope.
So now I want to talk a little bit about Raymond Patriarch.
One of the most unbelievable gentlemen you would ever meet in your life.
Now, all these people, all these different bosses that were around the country, they would just stay in their areas, right? They wouldn't really travel.
Raymond lived in the same house all his life. He never, and he used to drive a Jeep, and he wore a little porcupine hat. He was dressed. Raymond was a trip. I love Raymond. Raymond was a powerhouse. I mean, I was doing King Kong in Hawaii. We shot some scenes in Hawaii, and the Teamsters there were Samoans. And we got off the plane, and the guy who ran the Teamster Union walked up to me, and he said, Raymond sends his respect, and anything you need while you're in Hawaii is yours. You understand that? You just call me, and we'll take care of it. And I said, oh, thank you very much. Raymond reached that far. Into Hawaii from Rhode Island. But he was a powerful guy, and he was a very straightforward guy. I liked Raymond a lot. Raymond was a man of honor.
I got a picture of his house right here.
And that's Raymond's house. That's where he lived.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, you used to be out in Providence a lot, right? Tillinghast. Shout out to Jared Tillinghast. he has brought for it all. You said you had dealings with his father, right?
Yeah, and I lived in down in Portsmouth, which is just on the water down on the Tiverton River, right below Providence. I lived there for a couple of years. I lived in Boston. I spent a lot of time in Boston, and I spent a lot of time in Providence. And Raymond was, and we had this. His lawyer was my lawyer as well. So we had. Raymond. I had a lot of time for Raymond. I respected him a lot. Raymond was a very, like I said, very straightforward, and Junior's a nice guy. His son.
Yeah, I heard that he was a good guy too. Raymond and both of them, senior and junior.
Yeah, but his father was one of a kind. They just don't. That's the kind of people when he goes, they broke the mold. You understand?
Yeah.
Raymond was a very powerful guy. He controlled Rhode Island with an iron fist, and he reached up into Massachusetts. And it's like there was a guy out in Springfield who was a powerhouse. My God, sand in the nose. He was a good guy, but you would never know because he's from Springfield, Mass. Just how much power this guy had, all the way down through New York and the families and all. And there were
What was
people
his
like
name?
that.
Sam. What was his name? Sam.
Sam Sorelli. That's Skyball. Skyball Sorelli.
Oh, Skyball. Yes.
Skyball was from Springfield as well. Skyball put together the junkets. He was the guy who invented the junkets. Skyball was a clever guy. I like Skyball. Skyball was a good guy. But they were smart guys, these guys, and they stuck to the business that they were good at, gambling and stuff. You understand?
Yeah.
And they followed the code that was originally put down. And just some people just didn't want to do that, and they got into stupidity.
And now you got these new guys who cooperate and think they're going to get out of prison and act like gangsters again. No merit.
Let me tell you, it's very, very sad. It's just you just can't.
Here's
you gotta watch who you talk to all the time, huh?
Here's Skyball.
Skyball was a trip. Skyball was great. He was he had an argument with Sinatra one time in a casino. Sinatra liked to gamble. But he was only allowed to gamble what he was being paid because he would run up a bill, something terrible. And the pit boss shut him off. And he started screaming and shouting at the guy, "You can't, don't you know who I am, Frank Sinatra?" Blah, blah, blah. And Skyball came in the casino and he told him to go to bed. Oh, he knocked him, Skyball hit him, knocked him on his ass and told him, he said, "Now go cry to whoever you want. Tell them what I just did. Now get your ass over there and go to bed."
Did they used to treat Sinatra like that? Like kind of like punk him?
Yeah, Sinatra talked too much. He was Sinatra from the time he was a kid, his mother was a super lady, and she ran numbers for people. She was involved with people in the street years ago, and she babied him like she ironed his underwear, for Christ's sake. And Sinatra was candle with kid gloves, and then when he was in the big band era, and my father got him out of that contract. My father went and put a gun to the guy's head and said, "Either sign it or your brains will be on the contract." And he got Sinatra out, and then he was sorry he did because he said Sinatra couldn't keep his mouth closed. He had a big mouth. And he was married to Tony Accardo's niece. So when he got into trouble, when he divorced Nancy, he got into worse trouble. Then he wasn't allowed in New York anymore. Then they brought him back to New York when they had the Westchester Theater. They opened it up and they wanted to publicize it and all. So they brought him back. They let him back in New York to go and work at the Westchester Theater.
Wow. He was probably nervous going back there.
Frank was an ego guy. Boy, he was, he lived in his own. lived in his own world. Was a very talented man, boy. He had a hell of a talent.
Yeah.
And he was his own worst enemy as well. He had a great voice, and he was an entertainer. Frank was an entertainer. You know what I mean? And he was a hell of an actor. I mean, he would only do a couple of scenes. He would do a couple takes and walk away. So if you don't have it, I'm leaving. Goodbye. He was arrogant all across the board.
Yeah. At first, was he kind of quiet and put together, and then as time goes on, he gets arrogant and cocky?
Well, wasn't for Giancana, he probably would have been killed. Giancana liked him. He said, "I like the way the kid sings." But he was close to the Kennedys. He played both sides of the street. That was the problem.
He did a Whitey Bulger.
Whitey Bulger was one of a kind. Whitey Bulger was he was a rat his whole life.
What about Barboza? Were you alive when Barboza situation happened?
Oh yeah. Barboza was Barboza was a good guy for a long time and worked the system really good. And they locked him up. They told him that somebody was ratting on him and stuff like that. So Barboza started ratting on, and he just turned around and started ratting on people. And then they put him in a witness protection program.
He's the first person to ever be in the witness protection
program. Well, they put him in the witness. Well, he wasn't the first person. The guy the guy who ratted on all the people from Murder Inc. was put in the witness protection.
Oh, Abe Brellis, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He lived in that hotel for 2 years. But Barboza wasn't the brightest guy in the world, and he thought that somebody was going to kill him, and he turned around and he started ratting. So they put him out in San Francisco, and someone found out he was out there, and then he said he was trying to come home to clear his slate and say that he lied and everything, and he got killed on his way home. Joe Russo killed him.
Did you ever notice that, like, people who ended up cooperating, sometimes they'll come back around and be accepted into that life? Have you ever seen that happen?
No.
I've seen it.
No, you've never seen him totally accepted back into that life.
Well,
no.
maybe not totally accepted, but like Jack Garcia was a police officer down in Philadelphia. They accepted him back into the life.
That's not true either.
No?
No.
Maybe that's with the persona they want to put on,
Yeah, there's a lot of stories in the big city. You know what I mean, kid?
Yeah. Hey, I'm just trying to get to the truth.
Nobody really. They don't tell the truth. That's the sad part. And they put people. They taught me when I was a kid. Keep your friends around, keep your enemies closer. So you know what you're dealing with, and be honest about what you're dealing with, and look personal and understand they are what they are and they're never going to change. Once a person turns that screw, it's very difficult for them to go back the other way, because they figured it gives them a certain power that they can walk around and get away with things. And it's
and then no one will ever know.
But what they don't understand is that there's more people. There's people that work both sides of the street everywhere. You understand? There's people in law and order that are just as corrupt as corrupt people and stuff back and forth. And you just have to understand certain, like the FBI and the CIA don't like each other. NSA don't like any of them. They don't talk to each other. If they talked to each other, 9/11 would have never happened. What happened to 9/11 should have never, ever happened. These guys came from out of the country to a place down in Florida to learn how to fly. And all they wanted to know was, they didn't want to know how to land or take off. They just wanted to know the airspace. And
Right there, red flag number one.
It was all over. There were huge red flags, and the FBI knew it, and they never said a word to anybody. You know, and it's just 9/11 should have never happened. I'm gonna tell you that right now. That was the biggest blunder they ever did, and it was so stupid. Because why does a guy walk into a place, put down a suitcase full of money to teach me airspace? I don't want to learn how to take off or land a plane. I just want to know the airspace around where I'm going. You understand? And that's flags all over the joint. And they paid a lot of cash to learn that. So and they were foreign. They were from out of the country. They weren't from in the country. So the feds were following people like that. They knew that there was something going on. They never said anything to the other agencies. So it got out of hand.
I heard there was rats telling people that this was going to happen too. Like,
it was 100%.
Yeah,
it was. You can't. Even the guys on that side of the street, they can't keep their mouth shut either. It's always, oh God, boy, you don't know what I know. Oh my heavens, where do you see what's going to happen next week?
Yeah, you see a lot of them, like even the ones that claim they're good, they run their mouth. A lot of people.
Everybody thinks they're a wise guy. They don't understand the word respect, or they don't understand. We live by the code of omerta. I've lived by that code all my life, and if you're not going to do it, then don't be involved.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. And just don't be involved.
What's your opinion on these people that are because there's a lot of people on the internet now who were involved in that life and are on the internet trying to claim that they were gangsters, make money, claim that they're these big tough guys, and all they are is rats.
There's so many of them. I mean,
I got a clip of them right here. All rats. Every single one of them cooperated. There's
that's why they feel that if they come out and talk, nobody's going to bother them. But that's a lot of changes in the world, my friend. A lot of changes.
Really, it's crazy. It's pretty wild. Does it surprise you, the things that are going on in the world now?
Not really, because my father saw all this coming down the street, and the saddest part that bothers me the most is I love my country, and they're trying to put socialism here, and it will never work. It never worked anywhere else in the world, and it'll never work here. They're trying to take away the democracy that we had, and this country was put together very well in the beginning, and they're just letting it. A lot of things that are happening that just I shake my head at. I just, and no one person can fix anything. You understand?
Yeah.
That's the sad part.
It's a collective.
People of America have to stand back up again and say, we're taking our country back. You get out of the way. And they have the right to do that. The Constitution gives you great rights and amenable rights. And, people just have to stand up and stand their ground. And it's crazy because Americans are funny people. You can pull the wool over their eyes to a certain point, but then they get their back up against the wall. They stand up and fight. And I'm praying to God that that's what they do with this stuff. Things that are going on are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're too good a country to allow it to be run over the way it's being run over.
It's wild, man. So let's talk a little bit about your book, Family Legacy.
We're getting ready to film it.
I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah, it's going to be a great movie. Well, we got 2 more books going to come out. So we're going to do one film and then the sequel, and then we'll do a series of television. So a lot of history is going to be exposed, and we're going to tell the truth about a lot of things that happened in our society.
So the name of your book is called Family Legacy. Where does the book start?
Starts with my father's death, and it ends with Kennedy's death. And I tell the truth about a lot of things. A lot of things that I lived. It's nothing that I read in a book or somewhere. People can't say, "Oh, well, you read that somewhere," but nah, it's not true. I was there, saw it, and I lived it.
These are first-hand accounts from your transcripts, right? And you said that your father gave the lawyer manuscripts before he passed away, right?
Well, he had the lawyer actually draw it up. He sat and dictated. Albert wasn't the greatest writer-upper of things. He was very smart. So he talked and they wrote and they put together some documentation about things that were happening and the transitions that were going on in the banking world and everything else.
Yeah.
And he saw all that. He was there, so he put
you guys want to check this book out. The link is in the description. You can go buy the book. I get 20% on every copy that's sold. So. Make sure you buy the book.
Oh, God have mercy. No, it's like the transitions that when I went from sports to the film business, you always had to have a day job. You understand?
Yeah.
You always had to do something in your life that created a day job. And
so was your
just happened to work out very well.
Your day job was boxing, and then it went from boxing to acting. Oh wait, no, your day job first was football. You played for professional football teams.
I went from football to boxing, and then boxing into acting. Now I'm producing and getting ready to build a studio and things that are wholesome and things that are needed. We're doing some stuff that's really needed. And
we got
this movie. It's time for this movie to be done.
Chicky Ciccatelli's from Springfield. He was around Alphonse Bruno.
Alphonse Bruno was a good guy. He took over from Sam.
Yeah.
He was Al was a guy. I liked that. Al was a good guy. It was another straight. Springfield had a lot of power for a place that was in western Massachusetts.
Chicky was a bookmaker. He ended up doing some time for bookmaking. Can you believe that?
Who's that?
Chicky Ciccatelli.
Yeah. Well, that's when you start to think about bookmakers. Okay. You were doing when there was back in the day when you were betting a number, the odds were 100 to 1. You know what the odds are on the lottery today?
1,000,000 to 1.
how about several million to 1? You understand?
Wow.
But when you were playing a number in the street, even if you're playing a quarter number or a dime or something like that, these guys, you just got. They wanted people to win. They wanted to have people, if they made $30, they'd buy a new pair of shoes for their kids, or they pay a grocery bill, or you had housewives that were actually taking numbers. They used to get the phone call and they got paid. And
they had their kid. Hey, Tommy, go run down to the store with this slip, right?
Well, another guy who went around and collected the slips from these people. They were housewives taking numbers all day long, and somebody just went around and collected the slips off them. But
so what do? They because people say this stuff, but they don't explain what it is. Like they just say bookmaking or taking numbers, and people are like, I don't understand what that means.
Well, the bookmaker did several things. Bookmaker bet sports. And the numbers racket. The numbers racket was first. It started out with there were some places had a 3-digit number, some places had a 4-digit number,
like a lottery, right? Kind of like a lottery.
But the numbers came off of the horse races. So many for the first couple of races was the first number. They tallied up the amount of money. And the second couple of races were the second number, and you could bet a number. You could bet each number as it came out if you wanted to. You understand? There were so many ways of betting the numbers every day. It was to some people it was like an outlet. If they had a dime or a quarter or something like that, they would bet They bet a number. They bet their lucky number or their house address or something like that. And they wanted people to win.
Say I had $1.
People winning.
I have $1 back then, right? I want to bet. I want to bet a number, 3 numbers. Say the numbers 1, 2, 3. I write it on a piece of paper. What do? Do I call somebody?
You call somebody up and you say and pay them to bet. You're betting a number. I want to bet so much on this number.
So then they'll come by. They'll grab the paper from you and the $1.
Or they do it right on the phone. And you just you owe them the money. You drop the money off. You always, if you tried to cheat somebody came and saw you.
Yeah. So then they got the money. So then what do? They go to all these other houses, collect all the money together, right? Yeah. And then they wait for the If you need to take that, I could put you in the back room.
No. They have different banks in different places, and they settled up every day. At the end of the day, the number came out. They settled up with who won what. Some people split the number. They bet 1 number or 2 numbers, or they bet all 3 numbers. And then in Boston, they had a 4-number digit with 1,000 to 1. It was great. You
see, they had a lottery kind of like that when I was in prison, where they would do a lottery every day. They had it.
Well, it's a numbers racket.
Yeah, it's the same,
in prison, they used to do it by the number of absentee guys and shit. That's how they used to pick the number. How many guys?
I won it twice. Whole bunch of soups. I'm like happy as hell.
Nothing wrong with that, is there?
No.
I mean, they used to do numbers with cigarettes. They used to. God, there were so many different scams in jail. It was unbelievable. They gambled every day.
Yeah. Have you ever been in trouble yourself, Jack?
Most I ever did was weekends.
A little stint.
Did a couple weekends.
Yeah. I've done quite a few of those. And I always seem to get arrested on a Friday afternoon. So I stay there until Monday morning. It's always a holiday too.
No, they didn't like keeping me in jail even. They just they tried very hard for a long time, but I just seemed to be one step ahead of them all the time. But I had some great teachers.
Yeah, look at all the people you were around. Meyer Lansky, Frank Costello, Raymond Patriarca. These people are like legends. Every single name that I just named is a legend.
Well, I was very gifted. I went across the country. Meyer sent me across the country, and I met all the old-time Dons in every city, Chicago and Detroit, Milwaukee. And,
how were the Chicago guys compared to the New York guys?
They called themselves the outfit. Mm-hmm. New York was the mafia, Cosa Nostra, and it's different places. Chicago was funny. They were labeled as the outfit.
But they wouldn't refer to themselves like that, right? Never.
No, you had the boss of Chicago was Tony Accardo, and there was another guy who was actually from Detroit, and he ran Chicago, pretty strong hand. And Frank was just a front runner. Gene Connor was he was a front for Tony Accardo. Tony Accardo was the boss of Chicago in that era. And Gene Connor got himself in trouble himself. And when they killed him, they walked right in the side door with somebody that knew him. Some people just took things out of bounds, and there were rules that you played by. If you didn't play by the rules correctly, then you deserved the punishment. If you know that in front, then why break the rules?
Did these guys all like each other throughout the country, or did they despise each other?
No, they all got on with each other. They used to sit down and have conferences where they all sat down together and stuff.
My bad, Aldolfo. I always say his name wrong.
they had meetings in different places and got together and stuff. Very rare that they all sat down in the same place. That was very rare.
I forgot. Chicky is going to be a part. Sorry to interrupt you. He's a part of that movie, Willie Pep's movie, the boxer.
Ooh, Willie Pep was a great guy. I loved Willie. Willie worked my corner, and when I knocked out Manuel Ramos in L.A., Willie was out there. We were going to do his life story, and Willie was a trip.
What was this moment right here when they took this picture? What was that feeling like? What was going through your head right here?
Well, it was always good to win a fight. It was always good when fights were stopped. And
were you like, yeah, I got it? Like, was that the championship right there too? Or was that the title?
No, that was just another fight.
Because you won a title in
California, New England, Oklahoma. I was California heavyweight champion when I beat Henry Clark. Nobody wanted to fight Henry Clark. And I fought him twice in San Diego.
And tell the people your goal. What was your goal?
To fight Ali?
Yeah. To fight Ali.
We were signed 4 different times. It just never happened. He and I were good friends. I liked Muhammad. Muhammad was when you sat with him one-on-one, he was a totally different person. He was a very, very bright guy. And he was a very good athlete. He'd have been great at any sport he tried. He was just a good athlete.
Yeah, he was a very fast guy. Fast on his feet, man.
Well, he could fight. He knew and he had great coaches, and he listened, and he could, he was in the game from the time he was a kid, and he got jerked around. He was originally owned by a white group out of Louisville, Kentucky, and they never kept an eye on his contract. And his brother was a Muslim before he was, and involved with people in Chicago. And he told them that his brother's contract was coming up and that they should come down, and they swooped down and they took up his contract.
His name was Cassius Clay before, right?
Name was Cassius Clay, and every one of us, you have a draft eligibility when you're at a certain age. Well, if you got married young, they put you as 1Y. Well, they had Ali as 1Y. They marked his draft card as 1Y so he wouldn't be drafted. And then when the Muslims come in and took over his contract, the people in Louisville went back in and they changed his draft status to 1A. And he started this problem so Ali said to Chicago, well, it's no problem. I'll just go in the service and I'll be like Joe Louis. I'll be able to fight. I won't have to leave the country. We'll be able, things can go on. And they said, if you go in the service, we're going to shoot you from behind because we'll make an example out of you. And that's what his whole thing was about. They were standing up, making a point of something, which was ridiculous. Cost him 3 years of his prime life, which was very sad.
Did he get arrested or what? Didn't he leave the country or something like that?
No. He was right here, and he just he couldn't fight because he was going through court.
Yeah, it was like a standstill, right? Like a stalemate kind of.
He couldn't box, and he was going through this whole deal of draft dodging and everything else, and they were going through court cases and stuff like that. And then they come down to the wire where when he fought Joe Frazier.
Froze. Can you hear me, Jack? Bear with me, people. Jack froze real quick. Let me see. Let me see if I can. You there, Jack?
You back again?
Yeah, you froze. Yeah, it's all good. You know this technology, man. By a flick of a switch, it'll all be like, pew.
But he lost the fight to Frazier, and all of a sudden he was exonerated. And then when he went back and beat Frazier and took his title back, and, you know, then he was. I asked him one time, I said, "How could you lose to Spinks, man?" He said, "Jack, I was the actor, the director, and the producer." He wanted to be the first guy to win the title 3 times. And he knew he could go back and beat Spinks anytime he wanted to, which he did. You know, he was a smart guy. He made a lot of money. There was no money in boxing until Ali. Ali brought the money to fighters.
Hey, man, he did just like all those other people we talked about. Absolute legend. And you were around a lot of these people. So, I mean, your life has been like a fairy tale book, man. If you read between the lines.
That's what they tell me.
Yeah, for real. Dragnet. I was watching a clip from your Dragnet thing with the drawer. He said, "I'll just open this drawer." You're like, "No."
That was a good scene.
That was hilarious, man.
Hanks.
I can play the scene. Hold on, let me see. I can get it.
Dragnet was a good movie.
It was
You can watch Dragnet 50 times and you still wouldn't get all the one-liners that Danny Aykroyd said. Let me tell you something.
He had the best, and you had a lot of good ones too that people use to this day.
We had a lot of fun doing the movie. It was a fun movie to do. It was a breakout movie for Tom Hanks. And Aykroyd and Dabney Coleman in it. We had a lot of good. It was a lot of good people in the movie.
All right, here it is. I'll just have to here it is, Dragnet. Boom.
Dragnet.
Listen, you public pawn. My attorney's on his way, and we both know I'll be out of here in 20 minutes on bail. So take off cuffs and open the door.
I wouldn't worry about the door, Muzz. The kind of scum who'd represent you would just ooze right under it. Look, Joe,
Dan Aykroyd was great too, huh?
I know.
Yeah, oh no, Aykroyd was terrific.
You want anything, Muzz?
Chewing gum, Snickers bar, and my attorney badge kisser.
I guess it's just you and me and your balls in this drawer. Why don't you make it easy on yourself and lead us to the stolen magazines?
Jump on this and spin, cop. I'm not saying another word until my attorney gets here.
Say, Joe, wouldn't a couple of Danishes go great with this coffee right now?
That was great.
That's a great scene.
Yeah, it was. Telling you, man, that movie was they had a big snake, right?
Yeah.
Like a pit. It was like a snake in a pit, yeah. Shout out to Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks. If you can, come on my show and we'll talk about Dragnet and some of your dealings with Jack. Hey, sky's the limit, man. I'm not putting it past. I could try to get him on, you know.
Danny's up in Canada. He's retired up there.
Oh,
Tom's
which one?
around. Tom works all the time.
Oh, what's his name? Retired?
Danny Aykroyd.
How long's he been retired for?
Oh, he's for a couple of years now.
Maybe I'll try to reach out.
He hasn't done anything in a while.
I'll reach out to both of them. Me, who knows, right? Maybe I'll get him.
Aykroyd's a nice guy, actually. He's a pretty good guy. And Tom's a nice guy. Tom's not a bad guy either.
I always love having you on, Jack. And we're definitely going to do some more. And once your production starts, let me know. I'll take a trip down there and shoot some footage for you.
Absolutely, man. We're gonna put you in the role. I got a role for you, son.
Yeah, I'll play any role you need, man. Anything you need. I'll cover up these tattoos. You won't even know I got any. It's no problem.
It's always a lot of fun chatting with you.
Definitely. And Leslie, how are you? Thank you all for joining me. Has he ever been to Lewisburg on holdover?
Oh, I've been to Lewisburg, yeah.
Best thing I've clicked by mistake. Well, I appreciate that. Keep clicking it by mistake. Press the subscription button and keep hitting it by mistake. But I think I'm like about 8 subscribers away from 5,000, man.
Well, there you go. You're getting there.
I'm on my way, you know. Next thing you know, it'll be 10,000 and 20. It'll just keep going.
That's the name of the game.
Hey, man. Shout out to Chicky. Thank you for joining me, Chicky. Chicky was the guy from that we were talking about. This Chicky here on the right. He got away from the life and he's into acting now and doing the right thing. But yeah, man, you're welcome here anytime, Jack.
I couldn't believe you were talking to my friend Joey Pyle's kid, young Joey.
Oh yeah, Joey. Shout out to Joey Pyle. I got to release part 2 of that interview with me, Ori, and Joey Pyle. You know Ori too?
His father was a very good friend of mine, boy.
Yeah, it's sad that he passed away.
He was one of the good guys, I'll tell you that. He was one of the good guys.
Up in did you ever meet these guys up in London? The Cray twins?
I knew the Cray twins very well. They were good friends of mine. There was 3 of them, actually. Ronnie, Reggie, and Charlie. Charlie was a businessman. Ronnie and Reggie were the gangsters. The Richardson family from South London was Joey Pyle. Joey Pyle was with the Richardsons from South London. And the Nash family ran North London.
Yeah, so was London just broke up into 2 sections, South and North?
No, you had the West London was run by a guy named Dave Barry, who was a really super guy. Good, he was one of my best friends. And he ran West London, and then the Nashes ran North London, and the Crays ran East London, and you had Joey Pyle and the Richardsons ran South London.
Wow!
Each had their own section of the city.
And
the city was in much better shape when they were around.
Yeah, now I heard knife violence is very bad out there because the guns are illegal.
Well, I remember when there were no guns in London. Even the cops didn't carry. Only cops that carried guns were the flying squad. The regular police never carried a gun.
That's wild.
There was no, and the gangsters there weren't that many gangsters with guns. Ronnie was the first one, I think, that when he shot a guy, they were at a function. All these gangsters got together and they were having a function. And the guy sitting next to Ronnie Cray called him a gay. He told me he was gay. And Ronnie shot him. I said, "What the hell did you shoot him for? You are gay." He said, "Yeah, it was none of his business saying that in front of all those people."
Oh,
Ronnie
man.
Was a funny kid.
So he was a gay gangster and he didn't care. Like he would let people know.
Well, you just didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a wife and all. He just never talked about it, you know.
Yeah, like a lot of these people, their nicknames, even their nicknames, people didn't call them that to their face, right?
Not some of them.
Yeah. Like you're not going to walk up to Albert Annastasia and say, "Hey, Mad Hatter, what's going on?"
No, I don't think you would do a thing like that.
No.
Be kind of foolish.
Jack is the real deal.
Huh?
Leslie commented, Jack is the real deal. Definitely is.
Albert was a good guy, boy. A lot of people liked Albert.
Well, I can't wait to see that book, man, or that movie that you're making about him.
Yeah, it's going to be a good film.
I cannot wait. And you guys that are watching, make sure you go check this book out. Do you have it for can people listen to it like audio, what is it, audio?
Oh, we're doing that. I just made another deal with Amazon. They're taking another book out worldwide, and they're going to do an audio tape of it as well.
It's awesome. I can't wait to get a copy. Matter of fact, I'm gonna I'll probably order mine today later on. But I want it signed. What do I do? Order it, have it sent to you?
Just wait. We're going to put out a new book, and we'll give you the new one, signed new one.
Yeah, I need one. Put it in my collection of gangster.
You have learned how to read, right?
Yeah, man. I've been listen. So I'm not the best reader, and I have a hard time pronouncing certain words, but I try. And I'll
tell you a funny story. When I was a kid, and the FBI were really trying to put me away bad. So the old timers sat me down. They said, "Listen, should you get incarcerated, what you do is when you go to jail, you go down to the library and you join the library and you get books and you sit down and you read and stay away from everybody. Just be with yourself and read a lot of books, go run the yard, do what you got to do. Don't get involved in the politics inside. It's all bullshit anyway."
And that was some good advice.
No, it was probably the best advice anybody ever gave me.
Gee, I wish someone would have told me that before I went to prison, because I got involved with all the bullshit.
A lot of bullshit in there too, wasn't there?
Yeah, man. All they had to tell me, keep your fucking mouth shut, man. That's it. Just keep your mouth shut. Your mouth will get you in trouble.
Oh, does it ever?
Oh, yes, it does.
They told me, they said, just get a bunch of books in the library and start reading. Okay. I'll get Machiavelli right away and start reading.
Yeah, back then, shit. I mean, how old were you when you first got in trouble?
About 14.
Yeah.
But I was so well looked after that there was a police chief in Philadelphia who I was never, the troubles that I ever got into was never anything stupid like shoplifting or robbing or something of that nature. I remember I got into I went through a neighborhood one time. I was out walking. I got angry and I was out walking. And I went through from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. And there was a bunch of half-assed tough guys thinking they were anyway. They'd come from a corner and I was going by the corner and one thing started or another started. And this is in the book, actually. So I whacked out about 4 or 5 people, hurt them bad, actually. And when the cops came, I got locked up because all of them were laying on the ground. And they took me down to the police station, and a phone call was made to the captain of the police, and the guys yelled at the people, locked me up. "What are you doing locking this kid up? You know who this kid is?" Blah, 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 blah. And he was defending himself, and you're locking him up, and there's 4 against 1 or 5 against 1, and why are you locking him up? Just because he can handle himself? And the guys got reprimanded. They thought they had a big bust.
That's funny. They tried to jump me one time, these kids. I came outside, and they came from around the building, and I started fighting. I'm like, you want to come at me? So I start fighting, and I was getting the best of them. They start running, and I'm like, where are you going? Where are you going? You wanted to fight? They're all running. I'm laughing. It was funny.
Always learn that the first person you grab is the guy with the big mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, just jaw jack them.
I don't know. I was pretty handy when I was a kid.
I mean, you played football. You went right into did you play college football too?
Just for a year at Western Kentucky.
And then did the
I
scouts
got picked
find
up
you?
by the Jets and the Jets. But in that, it was an era where it should be that way today as well. You couldn't play pro ball until your class graduated. Your college class graduated. You weren't allowed to play pro ball because they figured your body matured and you were old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These kids are young coming into the sport, and they're getting hurt, and they get hurt, and they get, So you weren't allowed to play. So they had like a semi-pro league on the East Coast. We played for a team called Tinicum AC Athletic Club, and the Christie brothers and a whole bunch of guys that went up in the pro ball afterwards played in this league. So we were playing against good ball players. You understand?
Yeah.
You keep your levels up and stuff like that. And when it came time for me to play, I went up to Eubank, and a lot of friends of mine were down in Philly. And I said, I think I'd like to get down and play in Philadelphia for. They said, well, you got a home here. We'd like to have you up here. And I said, well, I think I want to take a shot down in Philadelphia. And then they sold the team to Jerry Wallman, who was a nice kid. I like Jerry a lot. And Ed Snyder and his son, it's his son that just got in all the trouble with the Commodores. Eddie Snyder was Jerry Wallman's partner, and they owned the Eagles, they owned the hockey team, they built the Spectrum in Philadelphia. But he hired a guy named Joe Q. Harrick as the coach. And I watched Q. Harrick trade away a championship football team. I mean, you don't trade. These guys are way before your time. You may not even remember. You remember Sonny Jurgensen?
No.
Sonny Jurgensen was a great quarterback. Tommy McDonald was an amazing receiver. And he traded them to Washington for a guy that could hardly play. So I came out of a meeting one day with Timmy Brown. Timmy Brown was a great running back. Came out of a meeting with Timmy one day, and I said, and he walked right by us. So I said, whoa, man, you don't talk. I said, you know what? Take this team and stick it up your ass. Ali had just won the title. And I told some people in Philly, I could beat that guy. So I wound up in a boxing gym, and Timmy Brown said, trade me while you're at it, too.
Yeah, when you said that back in the day, I could beat that guy, people would look at you like, yeah, right?
Well, I was a big, tough kid in the street. And he figured, well, what the hell?
Yeah, but it's like, what is it? Banter. The banter. People on your team, they're just like messing with you. Like, you ain't beating him, right?
Well, I was a pretty tough kid. They thought maybe there was a good shot at this. If I'd have done the right thing, I took fights on a week's notice and stuff like that. When I first started, I was held by I had a group that paid me every week to train.
Yeah, but you were a big guy. You're a big guy too.
I could fight. I had a lot of agility.
Your reach is long.
From playing different sports, I had a lot of speed and agility for a big guy.
Yeah,
I can move around pretty good.
Oh man, there's so many questions I have for you. Here, I got one more question for you. Tell me something that people don't know about you, Jack.
That could be incriminating, man.
No, not incriminating. Like maybe something you like to do, maybe a painting or something you like to do that people would be surprised to know about you.
I love the opera.
The opera?
Oh yeah, man. Pavarotti was a good friend of mine.
Aida. I went to Aida, the opera.
Pavarotti was, and the guy from Philadelphia, Mario Alonso. Mario Alonso was an amazing guy. My God, he used to sing in the streets of South Philadelphia. Mario Alonso had an amazing voice. And so did Pavarotti. Pavarotti, oof.
Did you ever try singing?
Yeah, when I was a kid, we all stood in corners. I sang with a group called Danny and the Juniors. They did a record called Act a Hop. It was big success. But I was only 14 years old. I remember going home to my mother and saying, Well, that's it. I'm leaving school. We're going to cut a record. I'm going in the music business. My mother said, guess what? I said, what's that? She said, your music career just ended. You're going back to school. There were two of us that were young, and we were in the original group, and we used to stand on the corner and harmonize and shit like that, you know?
Yeah, it was like you guys would sing like the harmony.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, them groups used to
Yeah.
do.
No, there were a lot of groups in Philadelphia at that time. A lot of talent came out of Philly. The Angels and the Hearts, and they were Southwest Philadelphia. We shared the same playground. We used to harmonize in the bathrooms. The bathrooms were great echo chambers.
Yeah.
Everybody would gather in the bathrooms. We would harmonize in the afternoons and stuff, you know.
It's
It was a peace pipe. You know, the fights all stopped. We just go in and sing for a while. And the Angels and the Hearts they had like 5-6 gold records. Long Lonely Nights, Teardrops. She had all kinds of talent. Bobby Rydell. I mean, God, all guys come out of Philadelphia. It was an era when there were managers driving around the streets signing people off the street corners and stuff like that. Fabian, you know.
I remember in the still of the night, we did a thing for the school. We were all on the stage and shit, singing.
There was a lot of great talent around, boy. You know, and you could understand all the words when people were singing, not like this bebop stuff they do today.
They need to get back to that. I think they need to get back to what's important.
I mean, God, there's the Supremes, and there are just so many great groups and come out of the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, there was a group. There was one group that came out of New Haven. They recorded their album right in a parking lot in New Haven.
That doesn't surprise me.
It was like one of the biggest albums out there too. I'm like, what? I didn't even know.
It was a great year. It was a great rock and roll. Was a great era, boy. I mean, it evolved around Jerry E. Lewis and people like that. They brought it out into the sunlight, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so much talent, so many groups around. My God, it was amazing. And then I went to England. When I went over to London to do Superman, I was around the Bee Gees and Eric Clapton, and
That was before Ozzy's time, right?
Ozzy, we helped Ozzy when Ozzy came. Joey Pyle called me on the phone. He said, "Jack, I want to make a meeting with Joe Isgro. We want to bring Ozzy Osbourne into America." And we sat down and put that deal together. That brought him into the United States. Ozzy.
Wow, that's awesome.
Joey Pyle was involved in that.
So who came to the United States first? It was the Beatles did, right? And then
the Beatles, yeah. The Beatles were an incredible group out of Liverpool. And they're so talented. I mean, George Harrison was a great songwriter. So was Lennon. So was McCarthy. They were very talented people. And they broke up. They should never have broken up as early as they did. You know, but McCarthy went on and sang on his own. Paul McCarthy George Harrison became a recluse. He owned a big castle. George was a good guy. I liked him. But you're talking about towns. I mean, you look at the Bee Gees. The Bee Gees were around for like 60 years, boy. You know, every decade, then the one brother left, and they still sung together until they started dying off. But they went through all different elements of music. There was a lot of talent over in London at that time.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. Rock and roll was a good era. 50s, 60s, 70s, a lot of fun.
What do you think of the music now? What's your opinion on the music today?
I just think they got away from themselves. I'll stick with the jazz and opera. Thank you very much.
Yeah. At least you get to go back and listen to the older music. You don't have to stick with what's out there now, you know? It would be.
You had groups like the Platters and, just so many. There were so many great groups. And so many, Nat King Cole. Just entertainers that were pure entertainers. You know,
Definitely, man. Well, I appreciate you, Jack. I got a bunch of stuff I got to do. I'm gonna go enjoy this beautiful day. I know we got a rainy
Take care of
thing.
yourself, man.
Definitely, always do. And I think I'm gonna go hit up a museum. Just put it, you know, I got a whole bunch of them out here. Go out to Hartford. I'm gonna go to Hartford and hit up a museum.
Willie Pep country.
The Wadsworth.
That's Hartford's Willie Pep country.
Yeah, man. They filmed so Chicky Ciccatelli is playing I think he's playing kind of like a organized crime figure or something like that. But he's in this new movie, the Willie Pep movie. And maybe I'll connect you guys and you guys can talk about Skyball and
Skyball was a good guy, boy.
And Willie Pep and them. But thank you, man. And you're welcome here anytime. You know that.
All right, you be well, my friend. Take care and stay out of trouble.
Definitely. And if you guys like this type of content, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Till next time.
Take care, man.
Thanks.